On May 28, 1483, 16 Florentine men carried this large triptych from the Arno River to the San Egidio Church. And while Florence was full of talented painters like Botticelli, Ghirlandaio and the Pollaiuolo brothers, this work came from current-day Belgium and was painted there in Ghent by Hugo van der Goes. When the triptych is fully opened, it measures 2.5 by 6 meters and it shows the Adoration of the Shepherds in the central panel, while the Portinari family who commissioned this painting is shown in the side panels. The triptych, which was installed in the Portinari family chapel in Florence, is full of symbols and details. For example, when looking at the background of each of the panels, a supporting story to the main panel is included. In the left panel, we can see a small scene of Joseph, the pregnant Mary and their donkey on their way to Bethlehem, where Jesus would be born. In the top right background of the central panel, we can witness an angel announcing the birth of Jesus to the shepherds, and the right panel contains a scene in the back of the 3 magi on their way to visit Jesus. And notice how all these background landscapes are set in winter, as that was the supposed time that Jesus was born. Now, before looking at all the incredible details in the central panel, let's study the side panels in more detail. In the left and right panels, we can see 5 smaller people accompanied by 4 larger ones. The smaller ones represent the Portinari family, starting with the kneeling man dressed in black on the left side. This is Tommaso Portinari, the commissioner of this triptych. At this time, he was around 50 years old and the manager of an important branch of the Medici Bank in Bruges in current-day Belgium, and an important advisor of the Burgundian Empire to which the city of Bruges belonged. Behind Father Tommaso are his 2 sons, Antonio and Pigello. On the right panel are the ladies in this family. The kneeling lady closest to the central panel is Tommaso's wife Maria, around 20 years old, and dressed relatively soberly in line with the clothing at the Burgundian court. Behind her is their daughter Margherita. Each of them is accompanied by their name saints, except one, and that is the youngest member of the family, Pigello, as he was born after the altarpiece was started. And just like the altarpieces discussed in my last 2 videos, the larger size of the saints simply refers to them being more important than the Portinari family members. So behind Mother Mary and daughter Margherita are Saints Mary Magdalene and Margaret. The lady on the right holds a jar with ointment inside of it, referring to Mary Magdalene perfuming the feet of Jesus during his life. The lady in red holds a book and a cross, and she steps with one of her feet on a dragon, referring to a legend that she was once swallowed by a dragon, but she would escape from its body. Interestingly, underdrawings show that the artist first had both figures reversed, such that the saint behind Mother Mary was Mary Magdalene, and that explains why that saint has long hair, typically associated with Mary Magdalene, but for some unknown reason, the artist changed the order of the saints later on. And behind Father Tommaso and son Antonio are, no surprise, Saints Thomas and Anthony Abbot. Dressed in black is Anthony Abbot, recognizable by his abbot's staff, the bell and the rosary he is holding. And the man in green and red is Saint Thomas, and the lance he is holding refers to the way he was killed. Let's start with the 2 central figures, which are the Virgin Mary dressed in blue at the center and baby Jesus, not laying in a manger, but naked on the ground, unprotected from the weather elements. Although we don't need to worry, as he is surrounded by a so-called mandorla, radiating around his full body. Mary and Jesus are surrounded by the obligatory ox and ass, Father Joseph, the shepherds, and angels, lots of angels. I count at least 16 angels in the central panel, and they represent a hierarchy of angels like seraphims, cherubims, thrones, dominions, etc. So, a special baby is born, a reason for happiness you would guess. But nothing could be further from the truth when we look at the expressions from the angels and people present. Mary looks austere, and Joseph and the angels as well. Only the shepherds show a different emotion. There has been quite some speculation on why things look so serious and almost gloomy, and some have said that it was related to the depression the painter was suffering from. Others refer to the fact that it was painted in Ghent, where tensions of the disintegrating Burgundy Empire were felt. Another explanation is that the culture in Flanders at that time was one of fear and damnation. Better live good, otherwise you go to hell, just as some religions still preach today. Yet another explanation is that the code of conduct at the Burgundian court was to not show uncontrolled gestures or spontaneous feelings. However, we can see that this does not apply to the grotesque shepherds. They represent the common people like you and me in this scene and clearly show their curiosity. The two pots of flowers in the foreground are put there intentionally to convey several symbolic messages. If interested, I made some separate videos on this channel about the symbolism of various flowers in art history. Let's look at the flowers here, starting with the orange or scarlet lilies, which are a reference to the blood of Christ as his crucifixion. Next to the lilies, also in the albarello, known as the apothecary's jar, are one dark blue and two white irises. They generally symbolize the future suffering of Christ, as these flowers typically bloom around Easter. But in addition, the white irises may also refer to the purity of the Virgin Mary. In the smaller glass vase, which in itself refers to Mary's chastity, we can see 7 blue columbines, the flowers hanging down. Their dark blue color refers to mourning, and they resemble the color of Mary's dress, reinforcing that this central panel does not mainly celebrate the joyful birth of Jesus, but refers to his future sufferings. On the bottom right are 3 dark red carnations, and they refer to the 3 nails on the cross. In Ghent, where this painting was made, carnations were known as nagelbloemen, which can be translated as nail flowers. And then there are various violets lying on the floor below. They are a reference to the humility and modesty of the Virgin Mary. If you look at the painting in more detail, you may discover many other details, sometimes pretty small, that have been included deliberately. What about the harp above the palace door? Perhaps a bit hard to see. It refers to King David from the Old Testament and is a reference to Joseph coming from the lineage of King David. And the 2 midwives who help Mary just behind the fence. And there is the sheaf of wheat in the foreground, a reference to Bethlehem, which literally means house of bread. But it also refers to the body of Jesus, known as the bread of life. And this may explain why Jesus is just laying on the floor there. Instead of in a manger, the wheat sheaf will later transform into the body of Christ, which is still used as the bread celebrated during the Eucharist today. Then there is a large column in between Mary and Joseph, and this is interpreted to be a symbol of the support for Mary while she was giving birth to Jesus. The ox and ass are also in deliberate positions. The ox is standing straight and has his head up high to acknowledge the importance of Jesus. The ass or donkey has his head down, a reference to humility and submission to Jesus. And the shoe or clog on the left is a symbol that Joseph is standing in a sacred place, referring to the moment that Moses was entering barefoot to the burning bush. As this is a triptych, it meant that the side panels could be closed to cover the central panel, and this is how the back of the side panels look. It is a scene of the Annunciation by the Archangel Gabriel seen on the right, to the Virgin Mary on the left. The idea was that the triptych was closed most days of the year, except for special occasions, which helped preserve the paintings on the inside of the triptych. The Virgin and Angel are painted in grisaille, a style that was common for the outside of altarpieces and tried to provide the impression that one was looking at two sculptures. Well, I hope you enjoyed this in-depth discussion of the Portinari Triptych, which is one of the most studied works from the Northern Renaissance. Today you can see it in the Uffizi Museum in Florence, and I am curious to hear in the comment section down below if you agree with my interpretations of the various elements or not, and if there are any other elements in the painting that you are curious about. For example, I did not even discuss the various types of angels. The jewelry, where each material and color also have symbolic meanings, and the various fabrics and fashions. Anyway, I'll leave it at this for this video, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. And as always, thanks for watching.